Hello, hello. This is Ken Lewicki of channelinginc.com. Welcome today to the Ask Ken Show. So glad to be here with you. And we're going to have lots of fun. And this is where you can get your spiritual questions answered, and I will live channel the answers. We are going to jump straight into my first question. And if you're watching this, the way that it works on the Ask Ken show is if you have any questions about spirituality, anything at all, just type in the question in the chat box and I will see the comment come up and then live channel the answer. I use discernment, so I don't answer everything. So if I don't be upset, but try anyways, and we'll see what we do. Also, too, if you wherever if you're watching this, just give your name and where you're from, and I will give you a shout out. Let's jump into our first question. We have a big one here coming in. It is, what is astral projection? Is my soul leaving my body or is it still attached? Okay, so I want to clarify something. Our soul, any of you who've taken any of my training, those of my students who've taken my training, I always try to make things as interactive as possible because I can talk about spirituality all I want, but unless you actually experience it, that's even a better way of learning. And so our soul resides here in our sternum area. So if you look at, like, we have our solar plexus chakra and our heart chakra, and then in between, kind of where your ribs meet at the bottom, there's that sternum area, so the bottom of your sternum, and that's where we call the seat of your soul, and that's the area I'm going to get you to feel into right now. And that, when we do astral projection, that's actually what we're doing. We're tuning into that area of our body. Uh, so let's just be clear here. Our soul is that aspect of us that goes from lifetime to lifetime. And it's the most important part of all our aspects that make us up. I've been able, through channeling, I'd be able to identify over 100 different aspects that make us up as a human, non-physical aspects plus physical aspects. And I have over 100 different healing modalities. So I do something once a month called Ascension Group Healing, where I heal mass groups of people all at once online, which is beautiful. I also do them in my trainings. And one of the things about our soul is that it can actually leave our body, and when we leave our body, this is there's many different ways that we can do this. So if we're awake, this is called astral traveling, is what it's called, astral traveling, or out of body experience. Same thing, different terms, but it does the same thing. So basically, you can lay on the ground or on a bed or on a couch or something like that, and you can allow your non-physical aspect, your astral aspect, to vibrate so fast that your soul literally leaves your body, and then you can go travel around with your soul into different rooms and different spaces. You can even fly around into, like, different communities and things like that. So what's cool about this is that like, don't be afraid to do this and try this. I always recommend to my students, yeah, go for it, try it. The only thing I suggest is stay away from the underworld, stay away from anything like that. Like, we always want to work in the light, hence the term light workers. I want all my students to be light workers. And there'll be like a silver cord that will keep you attached to your physical body when you're astral traveling. The only thing is, and at any time, if you ever want to just come back to your body, just think of your body and you'll snap back into it. Okay, so it's actually really cool and a very amazing spiritual experience that you can have. There's also what's called dream walking, and dream walking is basically the same thing as astral traveling while you're in a sleep mode. So it's the same thing. And um, what happens is, when you're in dream mode, like I do this almost every day, every time I sleep, every night, I'll leave my body, and I'm not dreaming. It's actually not dreaming. It's different. Astral traveling or dream walking is actually a completely different thing. So what you do is, what I do is I, like, fly around on rooftops, and sometimes I go into outer space and I feel like I'm flying, and because I literally am. What's really cool about dream walking, I want to encourage you to do this. So if you're watching and you want to take notes, you're welcome to do this. And again, feel into your soul as you're doing this. So this is your soul that leaves your body, whether it's consciously awake, that's called astral traveling or out of body experience, or when you're sleeping, then that's called dream walking. So what I recommend to my students that they do is they get a pen and paper and they start documenting and writing down their dream experiences. And the reason why is because when you do dream walking, you can hopefully eventually get to a point where you're doing what's called lucid dreaming. And what lucid dreaming is where you're actually conscious and aware of what you're doing while you're dreaming. It's really powerful because then what you can do is you could leave your body when you're sleeping, and because you're aware and you're conscious of what you're doing. Like, have you ever had a dream where you change the dream and stuff like that? That's lucid dreaming. But then also what you could do, and I've done this many times, is you can, if you notice that there's people in your dream, instead of just passing them by, you can actually stop and consciously stop, like on purpose, and then have a conversation with them. And oftentimes, these people in your dreams, they're not just random people. Oftentimes, they're your spirit guides. And when you're aware of this and you can do this consciously, then you can actually have like intentional conversations with your spirit guides while you're dreaming, right? How cool is that? And then what you do is you document that. So the reason I say document your dreams is because my experience has been that when I to dreams and I can start to lucid dream more often, more frequently. That's like kind of the key, the doorway to being able to lucid dream is by documenting your dreams every day. So I have like a notebook by my or a notebook by my nightstand, and that's what I do when I dream. Is as soon as I wake up, I write down my dreams. But what I suggest to my students that you do is that you just do bullet points, because the mistake I made in the early days is I would write big, huge, long paragraphs. It'd be like 2 in the morning and or 5 in the morning, and I'd be like, oh man, this is so monotonous and so long, and it just wasn't sustainable long term. So now I just do bullet points to capture the highlights, and I do try to capture also the emotions, like how I felt during different parts of the dream. All right. What is the difference between astral projection? So we have this part of us. So we have like our higher self. We have our body, like our physical body, our soul. I'm getting goosebumps everywhere right now just talking about this. And basically, what astral projection is what's called our witness or the observer. So it's our consciousness. So not our conscience. Our conscience is different. Our conscience is like when we do something immoral or we hurt someone or something, or maybe we accidentally break something of someone else's and we walk away and we're like, no, that actually feels bad. I should go back and leave a note and let that person know I broke it and try to make it right, maybe pay for it. That's our conscience. So that's a really important thing to know, that the difference between the two. And then I could go into like there's vanity, which is important. There's ego, which is important. We don't want to squash our ego. It's healthy and good for us in certain points. Same thing with our vanity. Same thing with our personality. So on and on. So those are a topic I could talk about later. Um, but what our conscience is, or consciousness is basically the observer or the witness. Now, when we astral project, this is where like people do what's called remote viewing. And I teach this in one of my workshops, my channeling level 3 workshop, also my retreats. We practice this where I have people purposely, they will project themselves into other spaces. So sometimes the military might use this when they're spying on an enemy. They'll have these psychics that are trained in this or do it naturally, and they will go and they will be able to identify like different enemy compounds, what's going on, like where the people are, where the machinery is, and on and on and on and on, for reconnaissance for the military is an example. And also sometimes police use this for finding missing people and things. I heard of a story in one of the major cities where this boy, he got lost along a river valley, and it was 2 days had gone by. He was basically a toddler, and they're like they couldn't find him anywhere. And then they finally turned to a psychic, and she was able to identify him way down the river on a certain area that there's no way the police would have ever looked, or the rescue parties would have ever looked. And they found him literally like hours before he was about to die of dehydration and lack of food. And so that's another example of how we can use remote viewing for very positive reasons and positive ways. So we have some questions coming in. Welcome to the Ask Ken show. This is where, if you have any questions about spirituality, any questions at all about, even myself or whatever, just feel free to ask on the Ask Ken show. Type in your questions and I will live channel the answers. And we have Prelumina signing in saying hi from Instagram. We have Michaela signing in from Instagram as well. We have some people from YouTube signing in. We have Osoyas, BC, British Columbia. Welcome. Thank you. We have Cheryl coming in. Hi, Cheryl. So just leave your name and where you're from, and then I will live channel the answers, and I'll also give you a shout out. So where you're from as well, like not just your name, but also where you're from. Okay, so I have a question: is what happens when we die? What happens? What will happen? Okay. Reincarnation 101. Basically, we have our soul. Our soul resides here in our sternum area. Again, feel into this area. So it's not your heart chakra. It's not your solar plexus chakra, but it's right in between where your rib bones meet at the bottom. It's an actual physical part. There's this really awesome movie out there where they actually describe about so let me give you some context. There was this scientist that what he did was this is way back in the 1910 or 1915, something like that. He was working with patients that were dying, and he got curious. So he developed a bed where it was like a scale, and he wanted to know what happened at the moment of death. And what he found is that at the moment of death, the patient actually became lighter. And this experiment has been tried over and over again since then, like over the decades. And so what happens is the soul actually leaves your body at the moment of death. And your soul actually has weight to it. It has mass. So this is this part here. And when you feel into it right now, I want you to feel into the texture, the substance, the material of your soul. That how cool is that? Like at that moment of death, it actually leaves your body, makes your body physically lighter. Like it's kind of mind-blowing. So this isn't just some hypothetical kind of aspect of you. This is called your soul. It is the most important part of all your aspects out there. Like your higher self is very important as well, your etheric self, your astral self, and I could go on and on and on. There's a whole bunch of different aspects that make you up. They're all important, the I am being, and so on and so on. But what I recommend to my students is that you get in the habit of regularly communicating with your soul. Your soul isn't one of those aspects that loud and bass. It's what's called the quiet whisper of the soul. Your soul was constantly trying to give you messages and guidance and direction of where to go, what to do with your life. And that's why I teach classes like finding your soul's purpose, like why did your soul incarnate, what is it here for, your soul's blueprint. I teach all these kind of courses on purpose because I want my students to really get to know their soul, but not just like on a hypothetical level or intellectual level, but actually get to know how to communicate with it on a regular daily basis. So something I do with my soul every single morning when I wake up is I put my hand on my soul and I tell myself, I love you. To my soul, I say, I love you so much. And I get to know my soul and I communicate with it. And I ask okay, what are some messages you want to tell me today? Like, what is it that, any guidance, any suggestions, anything like that. And I just love on my soul. And I do that every morning. I did that this morning and I haven't missed a day in like 15 years, or 10 years. So I do this as something that's really, really critical for me, like really important for my self-development, my personal development, as I'm guiding and I'm navigating through my life and I'm like trying to find out what's my soul's path, why am I here, how can I maximize this path and do the best I can to make the most out of my soul's purpose and why it wants to incarnate. What happens when we die? What will happen? There are some. I met a guy at the gym the other day, really nice guy. We get along really well. He's just happens to be from Turkey. I'm not saying all Turkish people are like this. That's just the country he's from. Just like any country, each individual might have different beliefs. So it's not about where he's from, but super cool guy. And he said to me, this was literally like 2 days ago, he said, Ken, it's really hard not to believe in anything. And I was just looking at him with so much compassion because I used to be like him. I used to be an atheist agnostic where I just didn't think anything would happen after we die. I thought we'd just go to dust. And this was because when I was a child and I was really young, I was, in the backyard and I was talking, to spirits and all that. And my parents are just like, oh, that's just Ken talking to his imaginary friends. He'll grow out of it. He'll grow out of it. And I wasn't. I was channeling my spirit guides. But because of the society I grew up in and the family and all that wasn't into any of this, I purposely shut down my abilities until I became an adult many years later. And then I reawakened my abilities again. But because of society, I was like, no, I can't do this because I didn't want to be bugged or bullied and made fun of. And so I purposely shut down my abilities. If message and say, yeah, I could relate because that was like scary times. Like I didn't want to, and I'm a sensitive, I'm an empath. So to be bullied and picked on was not cool. Um, or like it was too scary for me to do that. And then what happened was when during my toddler years and then when I went into my teens and my early 20s because I wasn't awakened, I just thought, oh, it's, we just die, we go to dust, there's nothing after this. And then when I had my spiritual awakening in 2001, I realized that, wow, we're way more than just, this physical body. We're like 98, 99% non-physical. And what happens with our soul when we die is it crosses over to the astral realm and we go back to the astral realm to be with our soul family. And then while we're in the astral realm, residing with our soul family, and a few years, a few decades, a few centuries later, because again, time is different up there. It does exist. Time does exist. A lot of people are like, time doesn't exist. No, it actually does. It just exists differently in different states, but it does exist. And then we might reincarnate again, come back down to Earth. And then while we're on Earth, we'll grow, we'll evolve as a soul. All souls are evolving. It doesn't matter whether the person's awake or not, spiritually awakened or not. Every soul evolves. It's impossible not to. They don't always evolve in a good, healthy direction. I think for you, I don't know about you, but I've had some times in my life where I'm like definitely de-evolving. I'm not going in a good path. Now I'm very intentional about making sure I'm going in an upward direction on purpose. So all souls evolve. And then what happens is when we die and we cross over, our soul leaves our body, physical body actually becomes lighter, like I said earlier. And then we leave our body, we go back to the astral realm, we reside in the astral realm for a certain period of time until we decide to incarnate again and come back down to Earth. Or we can actually incarnate and reside on a different planet. So it doesn't have to be planet Earth. And one of the things that I do with my students is I have them, instead of talking about past lives, I have them actually experience a past life. So I take them through a past life regression where they've had a past life on this planet and then ask them questions like, okay, what part of the planet are you in? What continent or country is it? What era is it? What time in history did you have this reincarnation or this past life? And were you a male? Were you a female? What was the society like? Were you alone? Were you with other people? Or like, what was it like in the scene that your soul is showing you? It's not made up. It's not an intellectual thing. It's your soul is like a memory bank and it records all these past lives. So in this lifetime, what you do, really cool, is you can go back into those past lives on purpose and not just relive them and re-experience them, but take all the good qualities and properties and attributes from these past lives and bring them and integrate them into this present lifetime. How cool is that? There's sometimes I'll watch these like TV shows like America's Got Talent or Britain's Got Talent or these, Got Talent kind of shows. And you'll have like this 5-year-old kid that comes out on stage and does some amazing performance, whether it's musical or dance or whatever it might be. And everyone, all the audience is like, and the judges are like, what? What's going on? How is this possible? Like, they're so young. How are they able to do this? It's because it's not their first time doing this. In a past life, they've been doing this. Maybe one past life, maybe many past lives. They've learned those skills, and then they incarnate into this lifetime. They bring those skills with them into this lifetime, and then they continue on. That's how they do this. How cool is that? Pretty neat, right? And you can do this very intentionally. It doesn't have to be like, oh, that's just for those people. No, you can feel into your soul in your sternum area, and then intentionally go back into a past life. Let your soul guide you into that past life. And then, so this is one thing that's really important about channeling. That's what I teach. Channeling is getting yourself out of the way, not making it up, but allow your soul to dictate or guide you to the past life it wants to. It's intelligent. Your soul is intelligent. It knows the past life that would benefit you the most. So just feel into your soul, and then like I recommend closing your eyes, feeling into your soul, and then allow your soul to take you to the past life it wants to. It wants to take you there because there's a reason for it. It's not by accident. It's not just some random soul or random past life. There's a very particular special reason why it wants to take you to that past life and not another one, not a different one. So try not to force it. And I also recommend, this is Psychology 101. So I do have some psychology training, therapy training, counseling training, and so on and so on. Is what I recommend is with your eyes, if you, little Psychology 101 kind of training here, is if you ever talking with someone and say, oh, what's your first car? Or what's, some like that, some like a memory from the past. Oftentimes you'll see their eyes look up in their head. That means they're in their head, they're looking for that memory in their head. If you ask them what's one of your favorite songs, you'll often see them, they'll look to one side or the other. They're looking where their ear is because they're trying to hear that song in their brain, in their mind. Then if you ask them, how do you feel about that? You'll see them, hopefully, they'll look down in their body. If they're not looking in their body, if they're looking up, they're looking for thoughts. That's different. Thoughts are different than feelings. So you want to, if you're in the helping industry and you ask questions like, well, how do you feel about this? And the person's looking up in their mind, you say to them, say, no, 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 no. Look down with your eyes in your body, because that's where your feelings are. Your feelings are down here. They're not up there. And watch the way their eyes are pointing. Same thing with your soul. When you are communicating with your soul, what I recommend with my students is look down with your eyes into the center of your sternum area, this part right here, and just feel into this part, and like feel into your soul, feel into the, so if you're watching this, try this right now, like really feel into it, and then do your best to increase the connection with your soul. And again, if you're doing this right now, please do. I want you to. And then try your best to allow your soul to take you to the past life that it wants to take you on this planet. When did you incarnate? Where was it? What continent? What country? What era? What time in history? Were you male? Were you female? What were you doing? What was life like in that past lifetime? What are some of the good positive attributes? We all have lives. So a lot of times people are like, oh, that's a good lifetime, that's a bad lifetime. It doesn't always work that way. If you think of your life in this lifetime, you've had moments that were amazing and good. You've had moments that maybe weren't so good. And then, lifetimes and seasons of your phases of your life where you've gone through waves. So just know that, try not to make blanket statements like, oh, that entire lifetime was good, that entire lifetime was bad. We all go through our ups and downs in every lifetime. How old did you live in that life? Long life? Did you live a short life? But length isn't always the determining factor. Maybe you had a short life, but it was an amazing life. Like there's a lot of those kind of questions. All right. Where do we go when we die? What will happen? Yeah, good question. Okay, we have a few more questions that came in. Anonymous. I just learned. I just learned you can sneeze in your sleep if your urge is strong in your body and wakes you up. I'm stunned. Oh, you can't sneeze. You can't sneeze in your sleep. Yeah. Um, yeah. I could feel that. That's a good one. So we have Cheryl signing in from Alberta. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Um, okay, so we have Shelley. Hi, Shelley. She has a question here. When my grandmother was alive here on Earth, she loved me so dearly as I did her. I recently had dreams about her, but she always seemed angry with me. Even she even told me that if I was waiting for her to meet with her, when I die, I better find someone else because I won't be her. It won't be her. Can the deceased be angry with us and the living, and why is that? Yeah, it's a good question, Shelley. Okay, let me give some context. Like if you're watching this, this is really important. So stay tuned for this. This part is this is like um, Souls 101, Channeling 101. This is very, very, very important foundational kind of training that I'm about to give right now. So please stay tuned. Take notes if you want to. There's three different realms. The three different realms are the astral realm, the animal spirit realm, and the in between realm. So we're not going to talk about the animal spirit realm. I do teach animal communication. It's phenomenal. It's amazing, all that. But that's a different topic, different context. So we're going to put aside the animal spirit realm for right now, and we'll just talk about these two realms, the astral realm and the in-between realm. When we die and we cross over, where do we go? We go to the astral realm to be with our soul family. We reside in the astral realm for a certain period of time until we die and we cross over. Then we go back and we reincarnate on planet Earth, for example, or we can incarnate on another planet. We reside on that planet for a certain period of time until we die and we cross over. We go back to the astral realm and we reside in the astral realm for a certain period of time until we reincarnate again. So this is reincarnation 101 I talked about earlier. What can happen is every once in a while, it's not actually as frequent as you, is that a soul might not cross over fully and they might actually end up in the in between realm. So that is a possibility, and that's what happens is what's called a lost soul. A lost soul is not of the light. It's not that they're bad or like I don't want people to start thinking or getting fear based. It's that they haven't crossed over fully to the astral realm. So what happens or what should happen is when a person dies, they cross over to the astral realm to be with their soul family. When they first initially cross over, they go into this area called a containment area. In that containment area is where they get the healing and the processing. They do the life review. They work with ascended masters from their soul family to help them process the life that they just had on earth before they are released to the general public. Once they go through that processing period, then they're released to the general public in the astral realm, and then they can start to hang out and reside with the greater soul family that is in the astral realm, and also other souls in the astral realm. If this doesn't happen and they become a lost soul, the one in the in-between realm, some people call it purgatory and things like that. I try not to use that term because it's has a lot of negative connotations, and I'm trying to get away from fear-based and all that other stuff with my students. But what happens is if a soul doesn't fully cross over and they end up in the in-between realm, and because they're a lost soul, then what can happen is they can have these they haven't had the healing that a soul in the astral realm would have. And that's why I teach my students how to cross lost souls over, or not only like how to identify them first, because you don't want to be channeling them. They're not of the light, they're not good for you, and they're not healthy for you. You want to cross them over first. Then once they're crossed over, they can channel they're in the astral realm and they've had the healing and processing that they need. There's a lot more to this topic, so let me go into more depth about this. Is that there's in the astral realm, there's 5 different kinds of souls. So again, if you're watching this, you want to write this down. There's 5 different kinds of souls that you'll find in the astral realm. There's random souls, ascended master souls, soul family members, loved ones, and your spirit guides. Okay, so let me go through that again. There are random souls in the astral realm, ascended master souls, there's soul family members, loved ones, and spirit guides. Now, remember that your spirit guides can change during different seasons of your life, things like that. Your spirit guides come from members, they're a member of your soul family, and I could go into depth more in that. So, there's 3 different realms. There's the astral realm, and then there's the animal spirit realm, and then the in-between realm. So we're not going to talk about the animal spirit realm yet, but these 2 realms. There are 5 different kinds of souls that you can find in the astral realm, and then there's a whole different category, and those are called lost souls. Lost souls are completely different the way that they feel. Souls in the astral realm will never ever have negative or low energies or emotions or feelings that are attributed with them. That I can say with complete confidence. By the way, be careful about when you hear people talking online or teachers or practitioners or healers. Whenever they speak in absolutes, always use caution. My experience has been that, like rarely are things like always and never. I'm teaching my students, I'm like, well, most of the time it's like this, and quite often it's like that. There are exceptions. And that's what I found. There are exceptions to the rule quite often, not always, but sometimes there's exceptions to the rule or different shades of gray and things like that. So whenever you hear people use absolutes, just be a little bit cautioned, because my experience has been that very rarely in spirituality, when we're talking about spiritual topics, is it, always like this, it's always, 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 or never like this, or never, never, never. But this is one of the cases where when a soul is in the in-between realm, because they haven't had the healing that they need, they can be lower energy, more dense, heavier, and there's a whole wide range of lost souls out there. There's lost souls that are benign. They don't even know that they're lost. They don't even realize it, or maybe they are lost and they don't know how to cross over. That's why they're called lost, because they're trying to find a way to cross over. I had a lady where she came to one of my angel parties. I just call it angel party because it's a fun name. And this was probably about 10 years ago now. And she came to this party and she's like, yeah, ever since I went to Europe, I was visiting these castles there. And then I came back. And ever since I've come back, I'm like super tired, drained, and I can't explain what's going on. And I scanned her and I'm like, oh, you have a lost soul attached to you. So I said, come here. I pulled her aside. And what it was this little boy who was dead thought that that was her mother. And so he attached himself to her. She hopped on an airplane and flew back to her home country, and then brought this lost soul with her. And the lost soul was attached to her the whole entire time. And she didn't know that's what it was. But basically, a lost soul doesn't have an energy source. So it often look for a host who has an energy source, and it will often drain people, and there's a whole bunch of other things that they could do to people. But in this case, the boy was benign. It was harmless. It didn't even know that it was lost. It was just like, oh, where's my mommy? Or that it was dead. Where's my mommy? Where's my mommy? And then attached itself to her, and then she was super tired. So what did I do? I detached the boy from this lady, and then I crossed it over to the astral realm to be with its soul family, to get the healing that it needs, and to reunite it with its soul family and its real mother, who wasn't that lady. And then I checked in with the soul family. Soul family was so grateful. Finally, they had reunited with the boy that was lost, and it was just beautiful, magical. And then the lady who was tired all the time. She needed a little bit of healing. Her auric field had been compromised, so I had to do some auric field healing. I had to do some work on her chakras to rebuild them and basically help them be healthier, and her energy source and her chi and her ki. And there's a few other minor things that I had to do with her. And then she was good. And ever since then, she's been 100% back to her normal energy structure, her normal energy levels. But that was a situation where this boy was benign. It didn't even know that it was lost. Then there's lost souls that are the other extreme, which are the ones that you see on those ghost hunter shows. They're the ones spooking people, scaring people, knocking things off the shelves, wreaking havoc. And those ones can cause a lot of damage to people, like harm to people. They can mess them up mentally. They can tell them people. I've experienced all this stuff, so I know from firsthand experience. I help my students identify this and get rid of these things so that they're not affecting them. So that they can continue working in the light, hence the term light worker. I want all my students to be light workers and things like that. I mentioned that earlier, and I can't overemphasize that. So most lost souls are somewhere in between. Okay. And in this case, Shelley, that's what's going on with your grandmother. Yeah, she has actually recently crossed over, so that's good. I'm checking right now. But sometimes what can happen is you can have a lost soul that it like could be in the in-between realm for decades or even centuries. And the longer that they're in this in-between realm, the more senile they become and the more harmful they can become, and so on and so on. So it's actually really, really detrimental to them. I have entire training procedures. I tell my students, if you're just learning this and you're brand new to this, stay away from any lost souls. Never go out looking for it. Never go out of your way to do that. I have entire procedures on how to detach the lost soul if you need to detach it, and then also have them over so that they don't anyone else or yourself or anyone ever again. So yeah, really, really important topic. I could go on for another like half an hour to an hour about this just one topic alone. Thank you, Shelley, for the question. If you're watching this and you have any questions about spirituality, please feel free to type in your name. Also, too, if you're watching this, type in your name and where you're from, and I will give you a shout out. We have some people on uh, Instagram that are tuning in. We have Huda. Welcome, Huda. Woo, woo. She's taking some of my trainings. We have Poe. Thank you, Poe, for tuning in. He's taking my trainings. We do such amazing things. He's an amazing healer. And we have Trisha and Life is Now Therapy. Thank you all for joining. Let's go on to our next question. Okay. Oh, let's see what we have here. Just give me a moment. Um, okay, I'm just reading through the questions. Hang tight. How many lifetimes can one experience, and what happens when it's all been accomplished? Yeah. So great question, Antonio. I'm going to say this, it might sound kind of controversial. And sometimes, like my students, I think they more respect me for this. So I'm not one of those people that I don't tell people what they want to hear. I tell them what actually really is. And if you want someone to tell you what you want to hear, I'm not that person. There's lots of people out there that will do that. I won't do that. I actually will. Would you prefer to someone to tell you what you want to hear, or would you prefer to someone to tell you what actually is? So that's what I'll do right here, Antonio. Some of you might disagree with this, but I'll just say it, and this has just been my experience. So the question is, how many lifetimes can one experience, and what happens when it's all been accomplished? So there's no real limit on how many times one soul can incarnate. There's a lot of variables in that question. It's like, um, have if you feel back in your soul again, this is why I teach people how to channel their soul. There's so many reasons why, of all the aspects that make you up as a human, that your soul is probably the one most important one to learn to connect with on a regular basis. Your soul also has had past lives where it may have been a short past life, but it evolved greatly. It evolves so much. So I want you to think of it this way. When you're in spirit form, your soul's in spirit form, it can only evolve so much. There's only a small, short range because it's in spirit form. But when a soul incarnates and it's in 3D form, then it can experience all the extremes, all the good, all the bad, all the ugly, all the extremes of everything. And then that allows the soul to evolve to its fullest, like more than any other way than if it didn't incarnate. And that's why there's a lineup of souls right now waiting to incarnate on planet Earth. All these souls want to incarnate on planet Earth, even if what is it? Over 80% of the world's population lives in extreme poverty. We're talking like less than $5 a day, where a lot of these people living on the planet right now, the 8 billion people, don't even have shoes or food. And a lot of them will die of starvation or malnutrition or disease at a very young age, maybe 2 years old, maybe 5 years old, maybe 2 months old. Why would a soul want to come to a planet like planet Earth and experience such hardship? The reason why is because it allows that soul to evolve. Because it's not just the hardship that it will experience all the other ranges as well, like including the love, or all sorts of different other emotions as well. It might learn compassion and understanding and empathy, and we could just go on and on and on. So there's a whole range that that soul will experience, whether it lives 2 years, 20 years, 100 years, or 2 months. Okay. So keeping that in context is a soul wants to incarnate because that allows it to evolve the most to its fullest, as that it maximize that evolution. And it can only do that when it's in incarnation form. It can do a little bit of it in spirit form, but not as much as when it's incarnated. Now, I have a lot of people. I even had like my daughter, who called me up one time, and she's like, "Dad, what do I have to do in this life so I don't have to come back in another lifetime?" And I was just like, "Oh." Like, that's the kind of questions, like when I was her age, I used to think of these things and all that. And it was just such a beautiful conversation. And I said to her, frankly, which is what I tell my students, is how many past lifetimes have you had where you're like, "I'm never coming back, I'm never coming back, I'm never coming back." Yet here you are, you came back. And so I tell my students this usually at later levels, because a lot of times people when they're first beginning their spiritual awakening and their spiritual growth, they're not ready to accept that, "Oh, I'm probably going to come back again." Whether, even though I've said many past lifetimes, I'm not coming back, yet here I am, I'm back again. So chances are, even if you say, "I'm not coming back again, I'm not coming back," most likely you're going to come back again. And the reason why I tell my students this is because the way that my journey went is, I'm like, "Oh, I hate life. It's so hard to check out. I don't want to be here anymore." That was during times when I was really struggling. Um, there was all sorts of other factors there, like lost souls and other things that were affecting me in dark years, dark times when I had no one to teach me this stuff. This is why I dedicate my life to teaching people how to channel, so that they don't have to go through the same struggles that I had to go through all by myself. And so I teach my students this stuff. And so what what I want my students to do, and if you're listening to this is very important, is I want you to, instead of being a victim of this life, I want you to be empowered. I want you to be like, "Okay, most likely I'm going to come back again in another lifetime. So what do I want to do? I want to maximize this lifetime. I want to make the most of it. I want to grow as much as I can and evolve as much as I can as a soul, so that when I come back, not if I come back, but when I come back into another lifetime, I can continue on this growth, continue on this evolution." So again, I'm going to give you another disclaimer. And again, some people might not like this, because I've had some people like, that's not true. And I'm okay. So let's make it very clear. There's been lifetimes when you've been a saint, you've been amazing. You've done amazing things. You've been kind, gentle, all that. And then there's been other times when you haven't been. And also to keep in mind that it's not an entire lifetime. Like, there might be a phase in your lifetime when you went through and maybe you weren't as kind as you are now. Like, maybe you were a jerk, maybe you committed crimes, maybe you hurt people. and then you learn from that, and now you're not like that anymore. Or maybe it has happened in waves. Maybe you've done that 2 or 3 times, and then you've smartened up and gotten better, and then you like went down a path that maybe wasn't healthy for you anymore or good for you, and then you started doing things that were inappropriate, and they're like, oh wait, maybe I shouldn't do that anymore, and become healthier. And we can go through waves as well in one lifetime. So there may have been lifetimes in the past lifetimes, that you've had where maybe there was times in those lifetimes when you hurt people and did mean things to people. And again, like I said earlier, it's impossible for a soul not to evolve. All souls evolve, but there might be times in their life where they're de-evolving, like going in a poor direction, or there might be times when you're going in a healthy direction. So what I want to do for the remainder of my life on this planet is I want to intentionally try to evolve in a good, healthy way, do my healing, do my clearing, so I don't carry that baggage into another lifetime. And so I'm more likely in that next lifetime to be a healthier person, a healthier soul, when I incarnate into that next lifetime. Now, there's a whole bunch of other factors that come when we incarnate. Like there's, what was our genealogy, our genes like when we were born, on that moment of inception, when your RNA from your father's genes, your 23 genes came in and met with your mother's genes, and then the two of them met. So there's genetic factors that are involved. And then what was the pregnancy like with your mother? How did she, did she eat healthy? Was she calm? Did she take care of herself during that 9 months while you were in her womb? And then what was the pregnancy like? What kind of society were you brought up in? And there's so many factors, not just the soul and the past lives. But if I can do what I can in this lifetime, so that my soul, when it enters a body in a future lifetime and it comes in as a baby, then hopefully I'm more healthier than this lifetime. That's my purpose lifetime. How much evolution can I do on a soul level in this lifetime to help me, not just for the remainder of this lifetime, but also for future lifetimes? And then there's also spiritual upgrades. I give my students attunements and activations and symbols and sigils and all sorts of cool, positive things that are good and healthy for them. Those will also be carried with you into future lifetimes. Not all of them, but a lot of them will. So just a disclaimer, they're not all of them. So this is really important. Why? Because I want my students to be empowered, not a victim of this life, but empowered in this life. Be like, you know what? Okay, I'm most likely going to come back again into another lifetime, most likely. So let's make the most out of this lifetime, and let's see how much I can evolve in this amount of time that I have left, whatever it might be. It might be years, might be decades, I don't know, but let's just make the most out of it. Does this make sense? So yeah, the bottom line, to sum it up, is a lot of times students come to me and they're like, I'm never coming back. I'm never coming back. The bottom line is most likely you will be coming back. So instead of being upset about it, just be like, woohoo, I'm going to come back. Let's see how much I can make out of this lifetime. Good question. Okay. So we have Lisa from Instagram. And what are your thoughts on the concepts of NPCs? I'm not sure what NPCs stand for. So if you can elaborate on what NPCs are, and I can answer that question. And if any of you are watching, give your name, a shout out where you're from, and or give your name and where you're from, and I will give you a shout out. Thank you so much for tuning in. So we have Carolyn. Thank you, Carolyn, for tuning in. I believe Alberta. We have Marie Jose from Quebec. Okay, so Carolyn's question is, how can I confirm my intuition is correct? The apprehension of a person who may have darkness. Is there a question I can ask them? Okay, there's many different factors to this. Non-player characters. Yeah. Okay. Let's I want to answer Carolyn's question. So there's multiple factors to Carolyn's question. Is how can I confirm my intuition is correct? Let's stop there for a second. Okay. This is one of the biggest questions I had. I just did a session with a lady just like a few days ago. And then after the session, she asked me this exact question. How do I know if my intuition, she's going through a situation where she's trying to figure out, some circumstances and stuff like that. And then, so I understand why she asked it. She's like, how do I know if it's just my body or if it's, my guts or whatever? And she talked about how she burped or something like that. It's so funny. And I'm like, no, 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 or my stomach gurgled. And how do I know if that's my intuition or if it's just my stomach gurgling? Anyways, okay, so here, this is really important. How do I know if it's my intuition or if it's just me making it up? You're going to, as you learn your channeling abilities, there's three things that I recommend that you practice channeling. One is your soul. The second is your higher self, which is up here about 1 foot above your head, 1/3 of a meter above your head. And then there's your spirit guides. Most people have somewhere between 3 to 5 spirit guides. Get to know who your spirit guide team is. When you practice this, and with some training, formal training, certification training, and practice, and a mentor to walk you through this on how to actually do this, when you get to know your soul, your higher self, and your spirit guides, that is your intuition. Like, there's more to it than that, but that's the foundation of fundamentals. If you can get really good at doing those three things, channeling those three things, your soul, your higher self, and your spirit guides, you'll be able to differentiate between your own stuff, your own shit, your own stuff, and the difference between that and your intuition. Okay, so Caroline, that's a very good question. Please practice channeling your soul, your higher self, and your spirit guides. Get to know your spirit guide team. Remember, your spirit guides are people like you and I in non-physical form. They're not angels or dragons and all that. They do exist, all those things. But for your spirit guide team, they are actual people like you and I in non-physical form. Most people's spirit guides are people you've known from past lifetimes, not from this lifetime. They can be different than loved one. That's a whole different topic. Okay. Okay. There's when someone's like a person of darkness, I want to be clear that no person on this planet is bad. Inherently, we're all souls, and we all have light in us. And then when we die and we cross over, we shed a lot of that human baggage and we go back to the astral realm and we get the healing that we need. And then after we do that containment area for a while, certain period of time, then we're released to the public in the astral realm. And the reason why we're released to the public in the astral realm after that is because we've released that human baggage in that containment area before we're released to the general public. So if we look at it at a soul level, no human is bad, for example. And I know some people disagree with me on this. On a soul level, they're not. However, just like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of factors that could come into play and why a soul or a person might not be as healthy as they can be. And again, they could be going through phases where certain points of their life, they're not healthy. However, there are factors where a person can have, I'll give you an example. There was a really like a yoga teacher. She came to me and she's like, Ken, my best friend from childhood is having troubles with her husband. I was wondering if you could talk with her about this. So her friend reached out to me, who I didn't know, but super awesome lady. And she's like, Ken, ever since my husband and I we got married 8 years ago, and the first 2 years he was amazing, he was great, everything was awesome, and then all of a sudden he changed and something got into him, and I don't know what it is, but now he's an asshole, he's a jerk, I hate him, the kids hate him, I'm going to divorce him because I just can't stand him anymore, and I don't know what's gotten into him. Even his boss hates him, his boss is going to fire him, he's going to lose his job, and I can't stand the guy. So I'm in my car and I'm on my way to the mountains, and I channel all the time. And so I tune into this guy and I'm like, oh crap, he has a lost soul that's attached to him. And I'm like, okay, so no big deal. I detached the lost soul, crossed it over to the astral realm to get the healing that it needs. This lost soul that was affecting this poor guy. And I say poor guy because I have compassion for him, because I've had this happen to me many times and nobody explained it to me. Nobody understood it. So I had to figure it out all myself in the first early years, the 8 years at the beginning of my spiritual awakening that started in 2001. And those first 8 years were horrible. They were so hard on me because I had to try to figure all this out on my own. So I just detached this lost soul. I crossed it over. This lady calls me up. She's like, "Oh my God, Ken, my husband's back. The guy that I fell in love with 8 years ago, he's back. I love him. The kids love him. He's going to keep his job. Thank you, thank you. I don't know what you did, but thank you." And that's all I did. I didn't do anything else. I did healing on him. Literally, when she said, "I don't know what got into him," she was right. Something did get into him. In this case, it was a lost soul. So I'm not saying, Carolyn, that that person you're talking about is um, of the dark or darkness. That's what happened, is they had a lost soul attached to them, or they do have one. They might. However, and um, but if they do, you can detach that lost soul, cross it over again. I don't recommend my students dabble on that stuff unless they're professionally trained and know what they're doing. And I do teach that at later levels. I don't teach that at the beginning levels on purpose, because there's a lot of foundational kind of training stuff that I need my students to know and understand first. So when they get to that point, they can do it safely and appropriately. That can be very dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. And I don't want any of my students ever living in fear. I want them living in empowerment, but also I don't want them to be naive and do things that are inappropriate that could get them in trouble. So very important that you know what you're doing when you're doing this stuff, so that it doesn't jump to you and all of a sudden now you're, and I've had all this happen to me. That's how I know all this, because I was like, "Oh, what's this?" And then I channel it, or I try to do something with it. And the next thing you know, it jumps to me and attaches to me. And now my life's fucked and messed up. So I don't want that to happen to you. I care for you. I don't want any of that kind of stuff to happen. Um, Now, when a lost soul is affecting an individual, I tell my students is that detaching and crossing loss over isn't necessarily going to change that person dramatically. Like when a lost soul is affecting somebody, it's, and again, there's a whole range of lost souls. There's benign ones, and we're not talking about those ones. We're talking about the ones on this side or further on this side of the spectrum. When those lost souls affect an individual, it brings out the worst in them. It expands or compounds or exasperates their character defects. So if that person's already an asshole, it could be a guy or a girl. It doesn't have to be a male or female. It doesn't matter the gender. There's many asshole females out there. If that female or male is already a jerk, having a lost soul in there could make it basically make it even worse for them. Like they'll be more of a jerk. Same thing. If that person already has fear in them, that lost soul can make that fear worse. If that person already suffers and struggles with depression, that lost soul can make it worse. Okay. So sometimes, again, I don't want to use generalities, but when a lost soul is on this side of the spectrum, like really detrimental, then oftentimes they will play on those things for that individual, and they will do things like what happened with me. I would have a lost soul come into me back in my early days. Now it doesn't happen anymore because I know what I'm doing and I know how to get rid of them and not allow them to even get close. But in my early days, these lost souls would be telling me, "Oh yeah, break up with your girlfriend," and then I'd break up, and then she'd be like, "Why'd you do that?" "I don't know. I felt I should do that, even though I wasn't supposed to." Or these lost souls would tell me, "Get into an argument with your boss." So I'd have an argument with my boss, and then I'd get fired, or stuff like that. Like really serious 3D world effects. Like I would have live, real consequences. So we have to be when we're channeling, the most important thing about channeling is always know the source of who you're channeling. And that's why I always recommend my students get to know their spirit guide team first. And that's why that's the foundation, the fundamentals, is getting to know how to channel your soul, your higher self, your spirit guide team, get to know who they are, so that whenever something that comes across your path is not of the light from the in-between realm, then you know how to identify it. And then there's techniques that I've developed that I teach my students on how to identify them, and then also how to cross them over. Yeah. Um, so the question, Caroline, you can ask, if you come across, have you ever had the time in your life when you meet somebody and you're like, "Oh my God," like you just have this amazing connection and you connect with them so good and so well, and you have this instant like symbiotic kind of like expansion with them. That your body and your soul and everything else telling you that that person is good and healthy for you. And you can use what's called synergy. Synergy is a term that the individual parts added together is actually more. The added part, the individual parts. So let's say if you have 100 and 100, you add them together, it's like 300 or 400. That's a synergistic effect. That's why being in relation, whether it's romantic or friendship or whatever, you can do things on an emotional level that you can't do by yourself. And that's why I always recommend that people not just isolate and, go into some place out in the country by themselves for decades. Because yeah, you'll evolve. And don't get me wrong, there's a time and place for that it's good to have solitude and time alone. But also too, we want to be in relation with other people, because then we can have that amazing synergistic effect in a positive way. So there's people up in this range. And then there's people that are not healthy for us. It's not that they're bad people. So I want to get away from that. They're not bad people. They're just unhealthy. They need help. It's like I do my monthly Ascension group healing. I want people from here to come to this because people go to a hospital to get healthier, to get better. And if the person's willing and wanting help and healing, I'm going to help them. I'm not going to turn them away. But when it comes to friendships and people in my life that are in my inner circle, I don't operate with people in this level in my inner circle. If they want a healing session, things like that, that's fine. That's a different topic. That's a different factor. But having them, and then hopefully with the healing, they get healthier and healthier, and then they go in this range. But the reason is because, and again, it goes back to a lot of factors, is that it's not just the person and the soul level. So I do teach people how to do soul healing, soul retrieval, how to help heal the soul and the container of the soul, the surrounding areas of the soul, make sure that the connections to the soul is healthy and all that. So there's those factors to help that person in this current lifetime to get healthier. I also teach my students how to make sure that that individual is clear and clean, there's nothing external affecting them. And then there's also genetic healing, there's karmic imprints healing, there's a Akashic records healing. And again, I have over 100 healing modalities that could be affecting that individual in this lifetime. And I've worked with people of all walks of life, people who are prostitutes, who are drug dealers, people who've committed serious crimes, who've just gotten out of jail. And I will work with these people because they want help. And I will do as much healing as I can on them to help them get healthier and healthier, to help them be better, healthier members of society and citizens of society. This is part of my mission. So um, I ask questions like, how would a Dalai Lama or Mother Teresa, how would they treat this person? And then I try to do that. Or pick somebody that you admire, that you would look up to, and I try to admire that. And I'll see that person instead with compassion and love, because in my opinion, is the world needs more compassion. The world needs more love. We need to understand and see people. Like I had a teacher that she was sexually assaulted as a child. She's my life skills coach teacher. She's the one that made a profound impact in my life. And there was a group of 9 of us. So I was one of the 9. There was 8 more of us. And a lot of the students, my classmates in the training that I took over this 1-year period, they had situations themselves where they were sexually abused. And they were so angry at the victim, the perpetrator who had done this to them. They were so angry with them. And then it wasn't until about 6, 7, 8 months into the training where my teacher, Virginia, said, no, we have to stop blaming them. Most perpetrators of sexual abuse and sexual assault have been abused themselves, mostly in childhood and things like that. And so if we can see these people with love and see them with passion and help them get the healing that they need, then when they're released from prison or whatever, that these people won't recommit the same crimes because they have no need to do that because they've healed that part of them. And this is the way that I want us, not just with this topic, with all topics though, is instead of we see people as good and bad, instead let's see them with compassion. Let's see them with love. Let's maybe And some people don't want the healing and they have free will, and that's okay. They don't have to have it. There's consequences to that, but that's okay. And some people that want the healing, let's give it to them. If you're a healer out there, heal these people, work with them, help them overcome this. It doesn't mean you have to let them into your inner circle, but you can, you cautiously work with them to help them heal and get better and healthier. All right. So we are done for today. This is the Ask Ken show. I do this one. Any questions that were not answered, just type them in the chat box and I will mark them down, and then tune into a later episode and you will get your questions live answered on air. Thank you so much for tuning in. Love you all. Visit my website, channelinginc.com. I have a whole bunch of events that I do on a regular basis. Some are in person, some are online, and we'll talk to you all soon. Have a great day, everyone. Woohoo!